All right, let's talk about something we're all dealing with constantly: virtual meetings. For so many of us, they've gone from being a rare thing to, well, the main thing in our professional lives. And let's be real, it can be tough. So today, we're going to change that. We're going to transform our virtual presence from a challenge into a real strength, using some science backed techniques to really own our digital frame. But first, let's kick things off with a question I know you've asked yourself after a long day of staring at that screen. Why is it that 3 hours of video calls can feel more draining than a whole day of face to face meetings? It's a feeling we all share, but you know what? It's not just a feeling. It actually has a name: Zoom fatigue. And yeah, researchers have defined it as a very real state of exhaustion. It all comes down to the high cognitive load that's basically the extra brain power it takes to interact through a screen. So no, you're not imagining it. It's a scientifically recognized thing. So here is our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll get into exactly why these calls are so tiring. Then, we'll start building our new professional presence, piece by piece. We're going to cover mastering your visual frame, the science of eye contact, using your voice as a tool, and then how to use language that actually connects. All right, let's get into it. First up, why are video calls so draining? Let's take a look at the actual neuroscience behind our virtual exhaustion. Okay, so here's the deal. Our brains are literally wired for face-to-face in-person interaction. There's this thing called media naturalness theory that explains that when we communicate through a less natural way, like a flat screen, our brain has to work way harder. Think about it. We're staring at this weird grid of faces, which can feel a little intense, kind of like everyone's staring at you. We're missing all those subtle nonverbal cues we rely on. And on top of all that, we're constantly looking at our own face, which makes us super self-critical. It's mentally exhausting. And to put a number on what we're missing, get this. Some landmark research found that a whopping 55% of all communication is non-verbal, body language. And in a virtual meeting, we lose almost all of that. So our brain has to go into overdrive trying to fill in the blanks. And that leads directly to that wiped out feeling at the end of the day. So now that we get the problem, let's start building the solution. We're going to begin with the most important part: mastering your visual frame. This is all about being intentional and staging your virtual presence. Here are 3 super simple but powerful steps you can take right now. First, get that camera to eye level. Seriously, looking down at the camera makes you seem smaller, and having it look up at you can come off as a little intimidating. Eye level just says we're equals. Second, use the rule of thirds. It's a classic for a reason. Putting yourself just a bit off center is more visually appealing and just easier on the eyes. And finally, have a clean, neutral background. You want to be the main character, not your bookshelf. It also helps everyone else on the call focus on you, which is the whole point. And this is so true. That small screen magnifies everything. Since people can only see your upper body, your posture suddenly becomes a huge signal of your energy. So sit up straight, relax your shoulders. It not only projects confidence, but it also signals to everyone else's brain that you're alert, you're engaged, and you're present. Okay, we've set the stage. Now let's zoom in on the most critical piece of the puzzle for building trust: the science of eye contact. And this is where we're going to find something that's actually pretty counterintuitive, but it makes all the difference. I mean, we all know this, right? It's just instinctive. Direct eye contact is a huge social cue. It says, I'm confident, I'm credible, I'm listening. When someone looks us in the eye, we're just way more likely to trust them. Perception is reality here. But how do you actually do that on a video call? Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it kind of flips what we've all been told on its head. The common advice is to just stare right into that little green dot on your camera. But believe it or not, actual scientific research found that's not quite right. To create the feeling of real eye contact for the other person, the best place to look is actually about 2 degrees below the camera lens. And this isn't just a guess. It comes from a study that used some really precise eye-tracking tech. They found that looking straight into the lens can actually make it seem like you're looking slightly up. So that tiny adjustment, just a couple of degrees down, is the secret. It creates a much more natural, direct sense of connection for the person watching you. Okay, we've covered the visual. Now let's talk about the auditory. Your voice is a tool. In a virtual meeting, your physical presence is obviously limited, so your voice has to do a lot more of the heavy lifting to project energy and keep people engaged. So the key here is vocal variety. Whatever you do, avoid that flat, monotone voice. Mix up your pace. Slow down when you're making an important point. Use a pause for emphasis. Change your pitch and your volume to show you're enthusiastic.
Here's a great way to practice. Imagine you're a radio host. You have no visuals to rely on, so your voice becomes your only tool for connection. You'll naturally start being more expressive.
All right, with our visuals and voice firing on all cylinders, the last piece of the puzzle is the language we use to cross that digital divide. This is all about language that connects, both what you say and what you do. One of the most effective tricks in the book is called linguistic signposting. It sounds a little academic, but it's basically just giving your audience a verbal roadmap. You're telling them exactly where you are in the conversation. Using simple phrases like, to start things off, or, okay, that leads me to my next point, helps structure everything and makes it so much easier for your listeners to follow along. But connection isn't just about words, right? In person, we give little nods and smiles to show we're listening. A lot of that gets lost on video. So, how do we signal that we're engaged? Well, this is where a cool technique called video meeting signals, or VMS, comes into play. So VMS is all about using simple, clear, physical gestures, like a visible thumbs up for I agree, or raising your hand to speak. This is totally different from just clicking the little digital reaction buttons that pop an emoji on your screen. The big question is, does one actually work better than the other? And the answer is a resounding yes. A study directly compared the two. And the results? They weren't even close. The groups that used physical VMS gestures reported feeling way more connected and said they had a much better experience. And the groups that just used the emoji reactions, they saw basically no improvement at all. The physical act really, really matters. All right, let's bring it all home. In our final section, we're going to put all these pieces together into a simple, easy-to-remember checklist for your new professional presence. Here it is. Think of this as your 30-second pre-flight check before any important call. Just run through it. The frame. Is my camera at eye level? Is my background clean? The connection. Am I looking just below the lens? The voice. Am I ready to speak with energy and variety? And the language. Am I going to use gestures and signposting to keep everyone on track? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about looking a little better on camera. In a world where so much of what we do is remote, mastering your digital frame has become a fundamental skill. It's the new foundation for influence, for credibility, and for leadership. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Your screen, that little digital window, it's your new handshake. It's your first impression. It's how you make a lasting connection. So the only question is, what impression are you going to make? Thanks for joining me.